I was sorting cerebellum tissue samples at 3 a.m. when my dating app buzzed. Yes, I'm that researcher, the one who forgets to eat and naps beside centrifuges. And no, I don't usually keep dating apps open while handling delicate neurological specimens, but my coworkers had staged what they called an intervention. For days earlier, Vanessa, you're 38 and your deepest relationship is with your microscope, Dr. Collins had remarked, while the others exchanged those sympathetic looks that made me want to drown them all in stem cell solution. The notification light flashed insistently as I carefully transferred the final sample. My latex gloves made a faint squeaking noise against the glass pipette, a sound I'd always found strangely soothing in the sterile quiet of the laboratory outside Myrtle Beach was being hammered by a December thunderstorm, droplets drumming in a steady rhythm against the windows that reminded me of synapses firing. I peeled off my gloves and grabbed my phone. Some woman named Claire Bennett had matched with me. Her profile photo showed messy auburn curls glowing in sunlight, hazel eyes narrowed with laughter, paint-stained overalls, standing beside a surreal mural. My complete opposite. I stared at the profile so long that when I looked back at my microscope I could still see the afterimage of her smile hovering above my samples. This was absurd. I was heading revolutionary research on neurological trauma therapies. I didn't have time for whatever this was. Dating, relationships, unpredictable emotional equations that couldn't be measured or controlled. Yet I caught myself typing coffee sometime. The reply arrived so fast I nearly dropped my phone. What about right now? I checked the clock. It's 3:26 a.m. I know I'm at velvet hour across from the college. Insomnia and creativity wait for nobody. The rational side of my mind, which was most of it, listed every reason this was ridiculous. I was in the middle of sensitive research. I looked like I'd been crushed rather than merely exhausted. My dark hair was tied back in a 4-day-old braid, but something else, something that had been asleep so long I barely recognized it, made me text back, "Give me 20 minutes. I reached the cafe with rain-soaked sneakers and a pounding pulse. The barista looked barely conscious, but there in the corner, sketching intensely in a weathered notebook, sat a woman with that impossible auburn hair. She wore a loose cardigan that slipped from one shoulder, revealing a tattoo of what looked like a double helix woven with watercolor brushes. As if sensing me, she looked up. Those hazel eyes widened, then softened into the same smile from her photo. "Vanessa," she said, her voice lower than I'd imagined, with a slight rasp that sent an unexpected warmth through my chest. I nodded, suddenly aware of how my lab coat was still fastened over my wrinkled sweater, how my hand was unconsciously gripping my phone like armor. Claire," she said, sliding a steaming mug toward me. "I ordered for you espresso. You seemed like someone who respects simplicity." I sat down, my fingers wrapping around the hot ceramic. "How did you know?" She tapped her notebook. "I'm good at studying people. It's part of being a painter." For 4 hours we talked about her mixed texture exhibits, about my research on neural signaling, about childhood ambitions and adult disappointments. The rain stopped. The barista switched shifts, and somehow Claire's knee ended up pressed against mine beneath the narrow table. When I finally left for my lab, sunrise was breaking over the shoreline. I felt something I hadn't felt in years, maybe ever, a strange weightlessness, a frightening possibility. What I didn't know then, as I rushed back to my structured world of microscopes and calculations, was that Claire Bennett had already decided I was going to become her next obsession, and that the dating profile that had matched us wasn't actually hers at all. Back in my lab the following morning, I couldn't concentrate on the spinal tissue samples I'd been painstakingly analyzing for weeks. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, a sound that normally faded into background static, but today scraped across my nerves like steel. Well, I kept seeing flashes of auburn curls, hearing that smoky laugh, feeling the brush of her knee against mine. "Dr. Hayes, the director's waiting for your preliminary findings." My research assistant Liam stood at the doorway, clutching a clipboard. "Right." I straightened my lab coat and tucked a loose strand of dark hair behind my ear. "Tell him I'll send the reports by 11." After Liam left, I collapsed into my chair and stared at the electron scanner. My work was everything to me, funded through an elite grant, potentially revolutionary for treating degenerative nerve disorders. Yet here I was distracted by a woman I'd met once, whose number now glowed in my phone like dangerous radiation. I picked up a glass slide, then set it down again. "Damn it," I muttered before texting her. "I enjoyed last night." 3 dots appeared instantly, then "Prove it. See me again Friday." The confidence made my stomach tighten. I typed, "I have work. Everybody has work. Not everybody has chemistry." My face warmed. She was right. There had been chemistry, the kind you can't manufacture or reduce to equations. I hesitated, then typed "OK Friday." That same night across town, Claire Bennett stood inside her cluttered loft apartment. Paint-stained tarps covered the hardwood floors, and unfinished murals leaned against every surface. The floor, too Ceiling windows overlooked the shoreline, capturing the winter sunset in streaks of crimson that matched her hair. She wasn't painting her scheduled commission pieces. Instead, she was beginning something entirely different. Sharp streaks of silver woven with delicate patterns resembling synaptic networks. She'd gone directly home after our coffee and searched my published studies online. Now scientific imagery spilled through her brush, merging with feelings she couldn't completely understand. Her phone rang. "Hello, my favorite neurologist," she answered, balancing it between her shoulder and cheek while continuing to paint. "How did you know it was me?" I asked. "I saved your number." She dipped her brush into cobalt gray. "Besides, who else would call exactly at 9 p.m.? You probably organize your breathing schedule." I laughed, a sound that startled even me. "I'm calling about Friday." "Changed your mind?" Claire's brush stopped halfway across the canvas. "No, just wondering what I should wear." The silence on the other end made me regret asking. "Then something you won't mind getting." Ocean water on the next evening found us walking barefoot along Myrtle Beach while the sun slowly disappeared. The November air carried a chill, but I barely noticed. Claire wore a loose skirt that caught the breeze and swayed around her knees, her footprints pressed deeper into the damp sand than mine. "Tell me about your research," she said, lifting a shell and studying it before tossing it toward the surf. I hesitated, accustomed to eyes glazing over whenever I explained my work. "I study how damaged neurons might reroute electrical signals through synthetic bridges. You're building alternate roads inside the brain." Her eyes brightened. "That's exactly right." I looked at her, stunned. "Creativity and science aren't that different," she said with a shrug. "We both search for patterns, connections everyone else overlooks." We walked as the sky shifted from gray to amber to dark violet. Conversation flowed easier than any chemical mixture I'd ever prepared. When we reached the boardwalk, lantern lights flickered above weathered planks. A street violinist played something slow and aching, the melody drifting around us like invisible currents. "Dance with me," Claire said suddenly. "Here now." I glanced around at the scattered strangers passing nearby. "Nobody's paying attention." She took my hands. "And if they are, let's give them something worth remembering." Her hands were warm despite the cooling wind. She pulled me closer and I caught the scent of acrylic paint mixed with something floral, her strange, intoxicating signature. We swayed to the violin melody, my analytical brain calculating the exact distance between our bodies, the accelerating rhythm of my pulse, the mathematical improbability of meeting someone who made me feel this way. Then she stepped nearer, erasing every calculation. "You're thinking too much," she whispered, her breath warm against my neck. "I don't know how to stop." She smiled, sliding one hand behind my shoulder. "Let me help." When her lips met mine, taste joined my list of awakened senses. Vanilla from her lip balm, salt from the ocean air. The violin swelled, waves crashed against the dock supports below us, and for the first time in my adult life I couldn't form a single rational scientific thought. Later, driving home with the windows lowered and the taste of Claire still lingering on my lips, I realized I hadn't mentioned my lab or research for almost 4 straight hours, a personal milestone. What I didn't realize was that back in my university office, an email was waiting containing the first anonymous warning that would eventually threaten everything we were beginning to build. The anonymous message haunted me for days. "Dr. Hayes, reconsider your visible conduct. Your research funding depends on preserving the university's reputation." No signature, just a disposable account. I stared at my reflection in the laboratory bathroom mirror, trying to smooth my dark hair into something respectable. 3 weeks had passed since that kiss by the boardwalk, and I'd seen Claire 8 more times tonight. She was introducing me to her artist circle. My stomach tightened at the thought. "This is absurd," I told my reflection. "I'm a respected neurologist. Why am I anxious about meeting a group of painters?" But I understood why. In my world of academia I knew the expectations. Claire's world was different, untamed, spontaneous, and there was something else. This growing connection between us threatened the careful barriers I'd built around my professional life. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "We're something that makes you feel alive. Don't overthink it," followed by a purple heart emoji. 90 minutes later I stepped into Harbor Lights Gallery in the downtown arts district. The room buzzed with music and conversation, walls decorated with vibrant canvases. I gripped my wine glass like protection, searching for that familiar flash of auburn hair. "You must be Vanessa." A tall woman with shaved silver hair appeared beside me. "I'm Simone, gallery curator and Claire's oldest friend." She extended a hand covered in constellation tattoos. "Nice to meet you," I said, noticing how her eyes examined me with quiet precision. "Claire doesn't usually date scientists," Simone continued, "especially not ones connected to traditional institutions." Before I could answer, Claire emerged through the crowd, her hazel eyes finding mine Instantly she wore a vintage sapphire dress that mirrored those eyes, her curls a wild blaze around her shoulders. You came, she said, as if she doubted it. I told you I would. I felt the tension in my shoulders loosen simply standing near her. Come see my newest piece. She took my hand, guiding me through the gallery. I could feel Simone's stare lingering on my back. Claire's installation stood in a corner alcove, a combination of paint, copper wire and fragments of circuitry arranged in patterns eerily similar to neural networks. It's called transmission, she said, studying my expression. Inspired by your work. I stepped closer, stunned. She'd somehow captured the essence of my research in physical form, the possibility of reconnecting damaged pathways. Claire, this is incredible. She squeezed my hand. You don't mind? It's extraordinary. I turned toward her. You understand my work better than most of my colleagues. Later, as the gallery emptied, Simone approached us again. Claire, that collector from Chicago wants to discuss commissioning another series. Tell him I'll contact him tomorrow, Claire replied without taking her eyes off me. Simone's mouth tightened. It's a major opportunity tomorrow, Simone. Claire's voice was calm but firm. When Simone walked away, I lifted an eyebrow. You two seem close. We dated for 3 years, Claire said casually. It ended badly, but we still collaborate professionally. I nearly choked on my wine. That's your ex, one of them, she grinned. Does that bother you? No, I lied. Suddenly aware of Simone watching us from across the room. Later that night, heavy clouds gathered over Myrtle Beach. As we walked beside the shoreline, the water looked like black glass, reflecting flashes of lightning across the horizon. You've been quiet, Claire observed. I hesitated. I received an anonymous email, someone warning me about being seen with you. Claire stopped walking. And that concerns you? My research funding matters more than this, she gestured. Between us, that's unfair. My work could change thousands of lives. The first drops of rain began falling cold against my skin. And what about changing your own life, Vanessa? When was the last time you did something only because it made you happy? Thunder rolled above us, and suddenly rain poured down in sheets. Without speaking, we sprinted toward the nearest shelter, an abandoned lifeguard tower. I struggled with the latch, and we stumbled inside just as lightning split across the sky. We stood drenched inside the narrow wooden structure, illuminated only by electric flashes. Claire's curls clung to her cheeks, her dress outlining every curve. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'm not good at this, at what, allowing myself to want things, people. You. Claire stepped closer, rain sliding from her lashes. Well, I'm very good at wanting things, and right now I want you to stop worrying about grants and reputations and what everyone else thinks. Another flash of lightning, and I saw the vulnerability beneath her confidence. She was just as frightened as I was, simply better at disguising it. I closed the distance between us, pulling her into me. Her lips tasted like rain and red wine as I kissed her with an intensity that surprised both of us. For once I didn't calculate consequences or possible outcomes. I simply felt her hands in my hair, her heartbeat against mine, the storm roaring outside while something equally powerful surged between us. What I didn't notice through the rain-streaked windows of our shelter was the silhouette standing beneath a dark umbrella, phone raised to capture the moment that would later become ammunition against us both. Are you certain about this? I adjusted my navy cocktail dress for the 9th time, staring at my reflection in Claire's apartment mirror. The University Foundation banquet wasn't simply another event, it was where influential donors mingled with researchers, where careers rose or collapsed with a single conversation. You look stunning, Claire called from the bedroom. Stop pacing. When I stepped out, she stood beside the window in a fitted sapphire suit, matching her eyes, her auburn curls pinned into an elegant style that somehow still looked untamed. My breath caught in my throat. You clean up well for an artist, I said, attempting to sound casual. She crossed the room and adjusted my necklace, her fingers warm against my throat. And you polish up beautifully for a science nerd. The gala was held in the university's historic ballroom, transformed with crystal lights and white lilies. As we entered, I felt the weight of attention turning toward us. Dr. Collins approached immediately, champagne glass in hand. Vanessa, we wondered whether you'd attend. His gaze shifted toward Claire. And who's this? Claire Bennett, she answered before I could speak, extending her hand. I'm with Vanessa. Claire is an artist, I added quickly. Her work explores the connection between art and neuroscience. Collins' eyebrows lifted. Fascinating. Well, make sure to circulate. Director Reynolds is eager to discuss your newest findings. As he walked away, Claire leaned toward my ear. Breathe. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. Sorry, this is unfamiliar territory. She smiled. Let me get you a drink. Throughout the evening, Claire captivated my colleagues with her understanding of my research and effortless wit. Even the notoriously stern chair of chemistry laughed at her stories. I watched her across the ballroom, gesturing animatedly toward a circle of fascinated professors, and something warm expanded inside my chest. She's remarkable, said a voice beside me. Dr. Miriam Sloan, the only other female division head, sipped her champagne. I haven't seen you this happy in The 8 years I've known you, I'm just pleased with my research progress. I deflected. Miriam scoffed. Vanessa, your face brightens every time she looks at you. It's refreshing. Stop analyzing it. Later, as we drove back toward my apartment, Claire reached across the console and squeezed my hand. Your colleagues aren't nearly as rigid as you described. They were behaving because of you. I admitted. You have that effect on people. My apartment was inside an old renovated warehouse, all exposed brick and steel columns, but unlike Claire's colorful loft, mine remained as sterile as my laboratory. Minimalist furniture, blank walls, books organized by category. How long have you lived here? She asked, tracing a finger across my empty shelf. 4 years. And when exactly were you planning to start living in it? I frowned. What does that mean? This place has the personality of a tax spreadsheet. She opened my almost empty refrigerator and the food supply of one too. The following afternoon, Claire returned carrying bags filled with supplies. Over the weekend, my apartment transformed. She hung abstract paintings that somehow complemented my scientific journals, placed plants beside the windows, arranged photographs I'd kept hidden in drawers, my parents in Cuba, my graduation ceremonies, family vacations, into frames. What's this? I asked, lifting a small sculpture of interlocked metal pieces. Us, she said simply. Different materials, different methods, somehow fitting together. That night, after Thai takeout eaten on new cushions scattered across my floor, Claire told me about her childhood and foster homes, about creating art as a way to control something within a chaotic life. What about you? She asked. What shaped Dr. Vanessa Hayes? I told her about growing up as the daughter of immigrants who sacrificed everything for my education, about choosing neuroscience after watching my grandfather's mind fade from dementia, about relationships that ended because nobody understood my devotion to my work. I understand obsession, Claire said softly. Creation consumes you, whether it's art or science. She kissed me, then tasting of curry and possibility. Her hands found the zipper of my dress with an artist's precision. I hesitated, suddenly uncertain. We don't have to, she whispered. I want to, I said. It's just been a long time. She smiled against my lips. Then let me reintroduce you to the experience. We moved into my bedroom, now transformed with softer lighting and unfamiliar sheets. As our clothes slipped away, so did my carefully constructed defenses. Claire's touch was like her art, fearless yet intuitive, awakening reactions inside me I didn't know existed. When her lips traced slow paths along my stomach, when her fingers discovered the rhythm that pulled her name from my lips, I understood what it meant to be both scientist and subject, studying my own responses while completely surrendered to sensation. Afterward, tangled in sheets and each other, I traced the double helix tattoo along her shoulder. Why this design? She kissed my fingertips. Because everything beautiful hides a pattern underneath. Even disorder has structure if you study it closely. I fell asleep with her heartbeat against my spine, unaware that the photograph taken of us at the gala was already spreading through an email chain that would soon reach the university's board of directors. Monday morning in the laboratory began with promise. My team had documented remarkable neural regeneration in our newest trials, findings impressive enough to attract interest from Cinetech Biologics, one of the largest pharmaceutical corporations specializing in neurological therapies. They want to meet next month, Liam told me, practically vibrating with excitement. This could mean complete funding for Phase 3 clinical trials. Drive Hayes. I allowed myself a brief moment of triumph. 3 years of exhausting research, endless sleepless nights, and finally validation. I wanted to call Claire immediately to hear her celebrate with that contagious laugh. Instead, I forced myself to concentrate on refining the presentation. By noon, I had assembled our strongest findings into slides that even non-scientists could understand, something Claire had taught me through her art. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Huge news about my exhibit. Dinner tonight. I smiled, typing back, my apartment. I have news too. That's when Dr. Collins appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Vanessa, the director's office now. My stomach tightened. What's happened? Just come quickly. The walk across campus felt endless. Collins remained silent, his usual chatter noticeably absent. When we reached the administration building, I was escorted not merely into the director's office, but into a conference room where the university's communications director and legal advisor sat beside Director Reynolds. Dr. Hayes, the director began, sliding a tablet across the polished table. Perhaps you can clarify this. On the screen was a photograph from the gala, Claire and me laughing together, my hand resting casually against her waist. Below it appeared a university donor forum where anonymous users discussed my inappropriate relationship and questionable judgment. The thread already contained hundreds of comments. I don't understand, I said, although I was beginning to. The communications director cleared her throat. This morning, every major donor received emails containing This photograph and several others, along with accusations that the university is encouraging alternative lifestyles through research funding, that's ridiculous. I said my research stands entirely on scientific merit. 4 donors have already contacted us threatening to withdraw support, the director said. Together they represent $14 million in annual funding. The legal advisor spoke next. Your contract includes a morality clause, Dr. Hayes, while your personal life remains your own concern when it affects the institution. My morality. I stood so abruptly my chair crashed backward. I'm developing treatments for degenerative neurological diseases. What exactly is immoral about my research, or who I choose to love? Vanessa Dr. Collins interrupted. Nobody is questioning your science, but appearances matter to certain donors, so I should hide my relationship to protect insecure bigots. The words emerged sharper than intended. We're simply requesting discretion, the director said, especially with Cinetech considering investment in your research. They are a conservative organization. I left the meeting with my position intact, but my dignity bruised. Outside, winter leaves spiraled across the campus courtyard, their beauty now invisible to me. I called Claire, who answered immediately. Hey gorgeous, I was just thinking about someone sent photographs of us too. University donors, I interrupted. There's an online hate campaign attacking my research funding because of our relationship. Silence lingered across the line. Then come to my studio now. Claire's loft was in artistic chaos when I arrived. Canvases everywhere, music blaring. She switched it off the moment she saw my face. Tell me everything, she said. As I described the meeting, her expression darkened. When I finished, she grabbed her laptop and began typing rapidly. What are you doing? I asked, checking something. Her fingers moved furiously. Damn, your university page has hundreds of new comments. So does my gallery site. She turned the screen toward me. The messages ranged from merely cruel to horrifyingly threatening. Someone had posted our addresses. My phone rang. Liam from the laboratory. Dr. Hayes, something strange is happening. We're being flooded with calls and emails about your research. Some journalist asked whether we use lesbian science in our methodology. What the hell does that even mean? After I hung up, Claire showed me trending hashtags on social media. Hashtag defund Hayes and hashtag protectrial were gaining momentum within certain circles. Who would do this? I whispered. Somebody who profits if your research loses funding. She paced the loft, auburn curls flying. This is organized. My phone buzzed again. Cinetech Biologics need to postpone our meeting. Will contact you regarding rescheduling. I showed Claire the message, my hands trembling. 3 years of work destroyed because of who I love. She cupped my face in her hands. Not destroyed, threatened. There's a difference. My phone continued lighting up with alerts. More online hatred, colleagues asking questions, even my mother calling from Texas after seeing something online. I need to stop this, I said. Maybe if we just distance ourselves temporarily. No. Claire's voice hardened. That's exactly what they want, for you to feel ashamed, to disappear. Is that honestly your solution? I'm trying to be realistic. My research could save millions. Your research will save nobody if you allow bullies to dictate its future. Her hazel eyes flashed. This isn't only about us anymore, it's about whether you'll let fear control you. I stared out her loft window toward the ocean. The same waves that had witnessed our first kiss now seemed violent, overwhelming. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this fight, I admitted. Claire reached for my hand. Good thing you're not fighting alone. That night my inbox chimed with a message from the director for additional donors had contacted the university, but instead of threatening to withdraw funding, they'd pledged increased support specifically for my research, citing the importance of scientific independence from cultural pressure. The message ended. Apparently not all our donors share identical views. Nevertheless, proceed carefully. I forwarded it to Claire with the message, small victories. Her reply arrived seconds later. First of many. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we begin fighting back. The next morning my laboratory phone wouldn't stop ringing. I ignored most calls, focusing instead on preparing duplicate documentation of our research in case university systems were compromised. Liam and the research staff worked silently, the tension sharp enough to slice with a scalpel. Dr. Hayes. Liam approached my desk carefully. There's someone from the review board here to see you. I looked up to find Professor Whitaker, a man whose conservative opinions were infamous during faculty meetings. Behind him stood two committee members looking deeply uncomfortable. We need to discuss your pending grant proposals, Whitaker said without introduction. Considering recent concerns regarding your judgment, I straightened my lab coat. My judgment regarding neural regeneration is published in 4 peer-reviewed journals. I'm referring to your personal affiliations, which reflect upon this institution. Liam's head lifted from his workstation. The other assistants froze. My personal affiliations. I kept my voice steady. Perhaps you'd like to specify which ones concern you. Whitaker cleared his throat. The Ethics Review Board has scheduled a special hearing Next Thursday your attendance is mandatory. After they left, Liam approached my desk. That was about Claire, wasn't it? I nodded, suddenly exhausted. Apparently dating a painter now qualifies as an ethical crisis. That's ridiculous, he said angrily. The entire lab supports you. I managed a faint smile. Thanks, Liam, but this could become ugly. You all have futures to protect. So do you, he replied, and yours deserves defending. That afternoon I cancelled my lectures to check on Claire. She wasn't answering her phone, which immediately worried me. I drove to Harbor Lights Gallery with growing dread. The gallery windows had been shattered. Police tape blocked the entrance while officers questioned witnesses. Through the broken glass I could see Claire's upcoming exhibition, now vandalized with black spray paint. Phrases like moral corruption and restore order splashed across her canvases. I spotted her sitting on a bench across the street, staring blankly at the destruction, her vibrant energy replaced by a terrifying emptiness. Claire, I whispered, sitting beside her. She didn't look toward me. 4 years of work ruined in minutes. I took her hand. It felt frozen. Who did this? Anonymous call to Simone at 4 a.m. Saying keep your deviant artists controlled. Her voice sounded hollow. Insurance won't cover all the damage. The exhibition opens in 2 weeks. Simone emerged from the gallery, her face exhausted. When she noticed me, her expression hardened. This is connected to the university harassment, she said coldly. Your problem has become our problem, Simone. Don't. Claire warned. No, she deserves to hear this. We've already lost 3 major sponsors. They don't want connections to controversy. Simone's voice cracked slightly. This gallery was my entire life. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. Sorry doesn't replace destroyed artwork or broken glass. She walked back inside, shoulders slumped. Claire finally looked at me, her hazel eyes lifeless. She doesn't mean it. She does, I replied softly, and she's not completely wrong. We sat in silence, watching officers photograph the damage. Finally Claire spoke. I can recreate most of the pieces. Work non-stop. Maybe postpone the opening. You shouldn't have to. Neither should you be facing an ethics hearing. She squeezed my hand. But here we are. That night neither of us wanted solitude. We returned to Claire's beachside loft. Its massive windows overlooking the storming Atlantic rain battered the glass as if nature itself shared our frustration. The apartment reflected Claire's artistic disorder. Paintbrushes scattered across counters, unfinished canvases leaning against furniture, books stacked in unstable towers. But it felt safe in a way my pristine apartment never had. I keep thinking about whoever is behind this, I said, as we sat on her paint-stained sofa. They must have monitored us for weeks. Does it matter who they are? Claire wrapped herself in a blanket. The damage already exists. It matters if we want to stop them. I opened my laptop. The timing is too precise. Right when Cinetech expressed interest in my research. You think a competitor is weaponizing our relationship? It's possible, I sighed, dragging a hand through my hair. God, I hate this. Science should exist above this childish nonsense. Claire moved closer, resting her head against my shoulder. Nothing human exists above human cruelty. Not science, not art. Thunder exploded outside, briefly illuminating her collection of sea glass along the window ledge. Shattered things transformed beautiful by time and water. Like us. Perhaps I'm exhausted from hiding, I whispered, from measuring every action, wondering who's watching. She turned my face toward hers. Then stop. It isn't that easy. It is. Her eyes regained some of their fire. They want us ashamed, divided, terrified. Every second we're together is resistance. I kissed her, then softly at first, then with growing hunger. Her hand slipped beneath my sweater, tracing patterns across my skin that mirrored the lightning outside. We moved toward her bedroom, a sanctuary of muted fabrics and soft shadows, unlike the rest of her vivid apartment. As the storm roared beyond the windows, we created our own rhythm within it, my body arching toward hers, her name becoming both question and answer against my lips. For those hours there was no ethics board, no vandalism, no online hatred, only the elemental connection between us, stronger than any force trying to separate us. Afterward, tangled in her sheets while rain hammered the rooftop, Claire whispered, whatever happens, this is real. Remember that. I nodded against her shoulder, finally understanding what I was truly fighting for. Not only my research or reputation, but the right to this, to love openly without shame or fear. The storm eventually faded, but the one surrounding us was only beginning. I need your help, Claire announced 4 days later, bursting into my laboratory without knocking. Liam and 2 graduate researchers looked up from their microscopes, startled. Claire, this is a restricted research facility, I began, but she was already spreading large sketches across my desk. I'm building a new installation, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken about online harassment and digital mob behavior. I need your perspective. Liam approached carefully. Is this connected to what's happening to Dr. Hayes? Claire nodded. Artists process trauma through creation. Scientists conduct experiments. Let's combine both. Despite my initial embarrassment over her interruption, I was fascinated. The sketches revealed an immersive installation where visitors would experience the confusion and isolation of being attacked Online it needs a scientific foundation. She explained how harassment impacts neural signaling, stress reactions, fight or flight mechanisms. It was brilliant, blending our disciplines to transform our personal nightmare into something meaningful for the next hour. My team contributed ideas while I gathered neurological studies on trauma responses. This could genuinely work, I admitted, as everyone returned to their stations. But why now? You should be rebuilding your damaged pieces. Claire's eyes flashed with the determination I'd fallen for, because silence is exactly what they expect. Art should comfort the troubled and trouble the comfortable. During the following week, while I prepared for my ethics board hearing, Claire worked obsessively. She transformed her gallery space from crime scene into creative laboratory, the vandalized canvases becoming part of something deeper. Meanwhile, I traced the origins of our harassment campaign. Every evening Liam helped me follow IP addresses and email chains, searching for connections. Dr. Hayes, he said one night, excitement in his voice. I think I found something. He showed me how several anonymous accounts targeting us shared identical posting patterns. More importantly, they first appeared immediately after Cinetech Biologics expressed interest in our research. Could be coincidence, I said, unwilling to hope, or it could be your competitor at Stanford. Liam pulled up Dr. Marcus Holloway's research profile. His competing neural regeneration project is 8 months behind yours. If Cinetech funds you, he loses everything. I finished, but would he really go this far? Scientists can be just as vicious as anyone else. Liam shrugged. The ethics board hearing took place on a stormy Wednesday. I wore my most professional suit and carried 25 pages of documentation proving my research's scientific merit remained entirely separate from my personal life. Professor Whitaker led the questioning with barely concealed hostility. Dr. Hayes, how can we trust your scientific objectivity when your lifestyle choices demonstrate such unconventional judgment? I maintained composure. My lifestyle choice is pursuing revolutionary neurological research. Who I love doesn't influence my ability to analyze data, but perception matters within academia. Another board member argued funding depends upon trust. If scientific funding depends on researchers' personal lives instead of their work, then the system itself is corrupt, I replied. The hearing dragged on for nearly 4 hours before they dismissed me with an infuriatingly vague "we'll contact you." That evening Claire invited me to preview her installation before its public unveiling. The gallery had completely transformed. Visitors would move through corridors where their motion triggered projected hate messages. Sensors tracked heart rate and skin response, displaying physiological stress reactions on surrounding screens. The centerpiece was a chamber where visitors' photographs were captured and instantly altered into vicious memes projected onto every wall. Through headphones they heard the actual voicemail threats left on Claire's phone. It's overwhelming, I whispered. That's the intention. She guided me toward the final room, a peaceful space where restored pieces from her damaged exhibition hung beside photographs of people who'd survived similar harassment and thrived. This is extraordinary, I said, and terrifying. The museum curator from Chicago is visiting tomorrow, she said. If he approves, this installation could tour nationwide. The next morning I was preparing for my symposium presentation when Dr. Collins burst into my office. Have you seen this? He shoved his tablet toward me. The screen displayed Claire's installation featured in the Chicago Tribune Arts section. The headline read, "Online Hate Artist Transforms Personal Harassment into Groundbreaking Commentary." The article detailed our experience, quoting prominent scientists defending research independence from cultural influence. Claire's installation was being praised as a revolutionary examination of digital mob behavior. My phone rang. The director, Dr. Hayes, your attendance is required at the Neurological Sciences Conference. Immediately my heart sank. This was at public disgrace. Before my colleagues I took a cab to the convention center, rehearsing composed responses to termination. Instead I found Dr. Marcus Holloway surrounded by university officials and security personnel, his face pale. Dr. Hayes, the conference coordinator, greeted me. "Dr. Holloway has something to say to you." Holloway couldn't meet my eyes. "I apologize for my associate's actions and for attempting to undermine your research through personal attacks." The university attorney stepped forward. "Dr. Holloway's research assistant has provided evidence of a coordinated campaign targeting both you and Miss Bennett. Legal proceedings are pending." Trembling with emotion, I approached the podium where Holloway had been preparing to speak. The audience of scientists fell silent. "My name is Dr. Vanessa Hayes. I began. My research stands entirely on scientific merit. Regardless of who I love, I turned to face Holloway directly, and I love Claire Bennett, the extraordinary artist who taught me that science without humanity is merely calculation." The applause started gradually, then swelled until it filled the auditorium as I stepped away from the stage. My phone buzzed with Claire's message, "You did it, I'm unbelievably proud," but our struggle wasn't finished yet. It was simply evolving. The aftershocks of the confrontations spread through academic circles with remarkable speed. 3 days later I was summoned to the Chancellor's office, not the director this time but Dr. Miriam Blackwell herself, the first female chancellor in the university's history. Her corner office overlooked the entire campus, winter trees now stripped nearly bare by December winds. She motioned for me to sit without glancing up from her monitor. "Dr. Hayes," she said, finally removing her glasses, "you've certainly created quite a disturbance." I straightened my posture. I was defending my research integrity. "Indeed," she smiled. Unexpectedly, and forcing this institution to examine its own integrity in the process. She slid a press statement across the desk. The university was publicly condemning discrimination in research funding and establishing a new fellowship specifically for LGBTQ researchers. "This isn't solely about you," Chancellor Blackwell continued. "Dr. Holloway's tactics exposed a weakness in how we evaluate scientific merit, a weakness we are now correcting." "I don't know what to say. Say nothing. Continue your exceptional work." She stood, signaling the meeting was ending. "Oh, and Dr. Hayes, 4 new donors have approached us specifically to support your research. Progressive technology entrepreneurs who value both scientific innovation and moral conviction." I floated from her office, immediately calling Claire, who was overseeing the final preparation of her exhibition. "The university chancellor just endorsed me," I said when she answered, "and we received additional funding." Her laugh rippled through the phone. "I always knew they'd come around. How could anyone fail to recognize how brilliant you are?" That evening Claire's exhibition opened to critical praise. The gallery overflowed with critics, academics, activists, and journalists. Simone had done incredible work restoring and reframing the exhibition, though tensions still lingered between her and Claire. "She'll move past it," Claire whispered as we watched Simone charm an influential collector. "She always does." A reporter from the Boston Globe approached us, recording device in hand. "Miss Bennett, your installation is being called a defining moment in art addressing digital harassment. Was it difficult transforming such a personal attack into public expression?" Claire's hand found mine. "Art has always transformed suffering into strength, but I had help." She squeezed my fingers. "Dr. Hayes showed me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's where genuine strength begins." The reporter's eyes lowered toward our linked hands. "And aren't you worried about further backlash?" "Of course we are," I replied, "but hiding won't erase ignorance." After the interview, the museum curator from Chicago cornered Claire. "We want to feature your installation as part of our summer exhibition on digital responsibility. 8 major venues nationwide tour." Claire's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Completely. This work matters. It's changing conversations." Later, as the crowd thinned, Simone approached us carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "Congratulations," she said, her voice gentler than before. "You deserve this success." "We all do," Claire replied. "This gallery belongs as much to you as me." Simone nodded, something resembling acceptance crossing between them. "Just take care of each other," she said before walking away. Outside, a small cluster of protesters had gathered with signs condemning moral corruption, but they were outnumbered 6 to 1 by counter-protesters supporting artistic freedom. "Looks like the tide is changing," I observed as we slipped through the back entrance. We celebrated that night with a small gathering of friends at my apartment, now finally feeling like a real home with Claire's influence woven into every corner. Liam brought his boyfriend Miriam Sloan from biochemistry arrived carrying expensive bourbon, and even several of Claire's artist friends blended comfortably with my scientific colleagues. "To fresh beginnings," Miriam toasted, raising her glass, "and to stubborn resistance against ignorance." After everyone departed, Claire and I collapsed onto my couch, physically and emotionally exhausted, but victorious. The previous month had aged us both. I'd discovered silver strands in my dark hair and faint lines had appeared beside Claire's eyes whenever she smiled. "We should disappear somewhere," she murmured, resting her head against my shoulder. "After your Cinetech presentation, just vanish for a week." "I'd love that," I said, imagining quiet coastlines and uninterrupted time together. "I never asked, did they reschedule your meeting?" I nodded. "Next month their president called personally to apologize for the delay." Claire sat upright, her eyes suddenly playful. "We should celebrate properly than we already did." I gestured toward the empty glasses and abandoned plates. "That was a public celebration." She took my hand, guiding me toward the bedroom. "I'm talking about a private one." Inside my now transformed bedroom, where sterile white had been replaced with warm colors and soft textures. Claire slowly unfastened my blouse, her fingers tracing the shape of my collarbone, her eyes never leaving mine. "You were incredible these past weeks," she whispered, standing your ground. I had the right inspiration. I pulled her closer, the scent of her perfume mixing with the lingering smell of paint that permanently clung to her skin. Our bodies knew each other now, the rhythms, the reactions, the places that drew gasps and sighs beneath the soft glow of the bedside lamp. We moved together with the synchronicity of tides meeting shore, building, retreating, then finally crashing in perfect harmony. Afterward, watching moonlight slide across her freckled shoulders, I realized how completely my life had transformed within only a few months. My world had once been rigidly compartmentalized, work separated from personal life, emotion distinct from intellect. Now everything blended together, chaotic, complicated, and infinitely more alive. What are you thinking about? Claire asked, tracing patterns along my bare stomach. How you rewired my neural pathways, I replied, professionally and personally. She smiled against my skin. Just applying your research practically. Neither of us realized then that the real test of our connection still awaited, and that the victory we celebrated was merely the prelude to the future we would build together. 1 year later, I stood upon the stage at the International Science Foundation Awards ceremony, trying not to fidget with my acceptance speech cards. The audience, a sea of researchers, pharmaceutical executives, and university officials, watched expectantly as the presenter read the award citation for groundbreaking achievements in neural regeneration demonstrating extraordinary promise for treating degenerative neurological disorders. Dr. Vanessa Hayes. The applause swept over me as I approached the podium. My research had advanced beyond even my most ambitious expectations. Cinetech funding had accelerated our clinical studies, and preliminary findings showed a 68% improvement rate in patients with early-stage neural deterioration. Thank you, I began, my voice steadier than expected. Science at its heart is about connections, understanding how separate elements combine to create something greater than themselves. From the front row, Claire smiled encouragingly, her auburn hair now styled into an elegant shorter cut framing her face. She'd just returned from Chicago, where her installation had completed its 8-city tour to enormous acclaim. Next season, she'd open a new exhibition in Paris. I once believed that scientific advancement required isolation, that emotional detachment was necessary for objective analysis. I continued. I was mistaken. The greatest breakthrough in my research arrived precisely when I allowed connection into my life. My gaze found Claire's again. I want to thank someone who taught me that vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength, but its foundation. My partner, Claire Bennett, whose artistic vision helped me recognize scientific patterns I had overlooked. The applause that followed felt warm, genuine. How different from the whispers and sideways glances of the previous year. Not that everything had become perfect, there were still occasional hate messages, uneasy looks from older colleagues, assumptions about our relationship, but those moments had become background noise rather than defining features of our lives. After the ceremony, during the reception, Liam approached, carrying champagne. He'd been promoted to lead researcher on one of our clinical branches, to the greatest boss in neuroscience. He toasted to teams that become family. I corrected him. Chancellor Blackwell joined our group, nodding approvingly. The university trustees asked me to pass along their congratulations. Dr. Hayes, your research funding has been renewed for 6 years. That's incredible news, Claire said, appearing beside me in her sapphire dress matching her eyes. Indeed, and Miss Bennett, I understand your anti-harassment installation has influenced new legislation regarding digital ethics. Claire nodded. Senator Collins' office contacted us last season. They're drafting a bill. Later that evening we walked along Myrtle Beach, the same stretch of shoreline where we'd shared our first kiss. Spring had arrived early and the air carried the promise of warmer nights. The ocean reflected a nearly full moon, creating a silver trail across the water. I've been thinking, I said as we wandered barefoot across the damp sand. A dangerous activity for someone with your intellectual capacity, Claire teased. I'm serious. I stopped walking, turning toward her. What would you think about a more permanent arrangement? She lifted an eyebrow. Are you proposing a longitudinal experiment, Dr. Hayes? Something like that. I reached into my jacket pocket, suddenly nervous. I found this place, a beachfront cottage around 30 minutes north. It has a detached studio with perfect lighting for your work and enough space for a compact home laboratory. Claire's eyes widened as I showed her the photos on my phone. Vanessa, it's beautiful. It needs some renovation, but I thought we could make it ours together. She looked up from the screen, searching my face. You want to purchase a house with me? I want to build a life with you, I corrected. The house is only structure. You're the one who makes it home. We continued walking, discussing possibilities, making plans. Near a cluster of tide pools where we often collected shells, I bent down, pretending to examine something interesting. Look at this one, I called. Claire knelt beside me as I handed her a large oyster shell. Inside, resting within the pearly curve, lay a platinum ring with a single sapphire. Her breath caught. Vanessa, I never believed in perfect Matches before you, I said softly, different frequencies somehow harmonizing instead of colliding. She opened her hand, revealing a second shell I hadn't noticed. Inside rested another ring, this one silver, with a green stone the color of my eyes. Brilliant minds, she whispered, tears catching moonlight. I was waiting for the right moment. I laughed through my own tears. So that's a yes, that's a why did you wait so long? She slipped the sapphire ring onto my finger, then extended her hand for me to place the green stone ring onto hers. As we sealed our promise with a kiss, the ocean continued its endless rhythm beside us, waves advancing and retreating, each unique yet connected to the same current. Like art and science, like Claire and me, different forces flowing together, creating something stronger through their convergence. Behind us, our footprints traced a shared path across the sand, temporary impressions that would vanish beneath the morning tide, yet as real and meaningful as the commitment we had just made to each other. Not all evidence remains visible, but that doesn't make it any less real.